I was waiting for the chair, but then I realized I'm the chair, so that didn't work. So apologies for the delay. We're gonna start, and we're gonna start with this presentation of CoastPredict and the menu of solution. So I will try to do it in 15 minutes, and then we move to Jay presentation on ocean best practice, and then we discuss with Slido. Okay, so the menu of solution is basically a menu of different components that you will see. And here I leave you the time to scan the QR code to access the document. Actually, I'll go through the document itself, through this PowerPoint, and then I'll put back the QR code. Yeah, sure. And then I will ask you to comment and to go through it in the next hours, or we will decide, days. So the authors of the present authors list is here, and you see is already quite comprehensive, here presented in alphabetic order. The idea is that we want to, within, what do you mean? The QR code? That's, try again. We need to do capacity announcement here. Yeah. Salvatore? Okay. So the idea is to develop these components and identify the components as best practice and standards. Of course, then they need to be adaptable. So we have started, let's say, to define these components, and because we want to, let's say, strengthen the capacity within CoastPredict through these solutions. We want to strengthen the capacity of climate-related challenges and adaptation in the coastal area. We want to ensure the long-term sustainability and safety of the coastal community. And we want to deploy, with you, through the projects that we want to deploy these solutions, or the priority is one, we want to deploy them in the pilot sites with you, and then especially make through this, I'd say, integrated approach, we want to make available or possible an intercomparison exercise. So the same solution should be replicable in the different pilot sites. And that's the step that also has been identified in this coastal resilience in Europe document that you will find on the web. So starting from, let's say, how to approach the coastal resilience pathway, how to co-produce, and then define the framework, define also the socioeconomic boundaries, and then the pilots, as we have done, and sort and refine the possible solution. So also this is very interesting. It's a refinement process is possible. So we are starting from here, but then we will use the project to implement, to co-develop further. And here you will find in the document what we present as the 5 components from the observing, monitoring, modeling capacity, and then the multi-hazard people-centered early warning system, the climate downscaling that we discussed along these days, the decision support system for sustainable ocean planning, and the sharing of all these with the stakeholders, which doesn't mean to give them the solutions only, but also co-design with them and co-develop in this process. And imagine that this should be, in our mind, or could be, the backbone of each project that is implemented in CoastPredict. So we get, in the diversity of the coastal ocean, we get some homogeneity in the approach, in the solutions. This detailed table, which is quite important and has been elaborated a lot, starting from Nadia, discussed with the expert, and is open for your comment. It goes through the components. It presents the expected outcomes and outputs. It's also mimic what we have in the adaptation fund proposals. So I think we'll help the writing of those proposals and the next ones. But so I will not go into details. I will now go into the details of these 5 building blocks and describe the solutions we are proposing. So I will start with the coastal observing system. So the team that has worked with this building block has defined these 4 objectives. So increase the number of essential coastal variables, measurements, of course, on the basis of all the work done within GOOS and the coastal networks worldwide. Then complement the satellite observation with in situ measurements. Jerome before was clearly highlighting that important aspects, including the citizen science. We have seen the smart sensor this morning presented by Patrick, and also you have seen that we want to define the approach to the sampling scheme. I mean, how often, how frequent, depending on the process. This, I think, it apply from the fishery observing system to the classical CTD campaigns and so on. How many buoys and so on. So these need to be defined with you, and also because we want to forecast the impact on the coastal ocean, and then we need to be also supporting the user-driven application, so the value chain of a coastal observation. So we expect, we think that key aspects are expanding the observing system, use the new cost-efficient observation, and complement with the satellite. And you have seen different framework like SCOOP in this sense, and the DCC CR itself, and CoastPredict that probably towards the MOU could become also the collaborative approach towards the sustainability of this coastal observing system capacity. Now, again, the list, I will not go through it, but it's important that you do, and you go through it and you check the monitoring, the remote sensing component that we have highlighted, the in situ observing system components that the experts have highlighted, especially the citizen science one inside, or the cost-effective ones, as well the more novel technology aspects and sensors, let's say, or observing approach, including the tsunami integration. And of course, again, we need to prioritize this. So we are very open. I mean, we ask you to go through and maybe provide and help us to prioritize, because of course in the perfect world we get everything, but it's not a perfect world. Say it again? No, it's not prioritized. I mean, we tried, but it's not prioritized. It's comprehensive, but not with priorities. Oh yeah, it could be that there are gaps. I'm sure there are gaps. Yeah, you can comment and add, or say, oh, for our region is very important. Yeah. Okay. So that's the observing system. Then the cloud infrastructure. We have gone through a couple of presentations on this. We will discuss more, but we want to develop, define, and implement with EGI and the CORIS project, the cloud repository environment, with the international data, international standards, and we will do it. We will start with the prototype. We want to ensure the interoperability across the data, the products, but also the regions. And we want to make it possible to use artificial intelligence driven analytics and modeling into this environment. And we want to be safe in terms of authentication. So people, I mean, our data should be accessible but also protected. And we want to make it really seamless in the integration of observation models, observation, of course, also the satellite one we were discussing with Jerome and Maribeth, and modeling and the in situ, and make them accessible. So we think the cloud will help. Now, this design, apart the details, it explained that data will come also from outside world, like Copernicus, and Modnet, NOAA, and so on. They will be available in the data lake. Each pilot site will have his space to upload the data, the model products, and then all the computing capacity, and then the availability outside. And we imagine that from the sensors, from the citizen science, seamless the data will flow. And this is possible. It's starting to be possible. Then you have to see the slice. So you see the first one, and then another region, and then another region. Probably we will go up to 30 regions, more or less, we have, and each communicating each other and sharing the data where needed. So as we were saying, Nicola was saying, we will prioritize through phases. So probably in the 2025 prototype, we will have phase 1, phase 2. We still have to be sure. And then augment the capacity with artificial intelligence, and then open the cloud. We put 2026, 2027 as the final version of the cloud. I think that's doable, but it's work in progress. So again, comment if you think we have to add anything. Or then the building block on short-term coastal prediction, which objectives are very challenging as the others. So implementing limited area ocean circulation wave models up to 15 days forecast, which is nowadays the limit also of the atmospheric forecasting ensemble systems. And then the coupling with the river, the biogeochemistry, the waves and sediments, so more and more towards process-oriented, like sediments modeling, the data simulation, the artificial intelligence-based coastal forecasting, and also, and here the experts said maybe this is not mandatory for each, or is not the highest priority because it's more innovative technology for urban waters prediction system, which might be more complicated. We have examples of existing capacity. Here is some example of in Italy, in front of Rome, where a very high resolution model is validated with in situ observation. Then, the other one was in the Adriatic Sea, where the model was, the biogeochemistry model is coupled with the physics in 1D coupled system, at least 1D, and then it's validated with data. And then the sediment transport model we are starting, but I'm sure, we have expertise, so that should be available in the menu of solution. And then the data simulation, I'd say, is quite under development, but is an important component to be developed. And then the artificial intelligence driven coastal forecasting, we have example, and I think this is doable. It's the future also. This is an example of waves forecasting, but we have to use more and more data, observations, and then the urban oceanography here. It is just an example of very high resolution. It's close by, is in Taranto, in Puglia, very complex system, but we need to improve more and being able to do also sewage system modeling, connected, of course, with the large scale in the downscaling. Let's see. Okay, I move now to the building block. Is missing the name. Sorry, there are no. The authors are all on the top of the presentation, but in the document we have also them in each chapter. Of course, this has been prepared by the Flame community, and the idea, the objective are to downscaling from CMIP6 projection through the regional projection, and then extracting the indicators, and being able also to extract trends and extreme events, which is not straightforward. Develop also artificial intelligence statistical hybrid based methods for climate downscaling. We have seen some example in these days, and then of course there is a lot of synergy to be found between the different components of GlobalCoast itself, and the data management is key. I mean, not only how to compute them, but how to make this data available on the cloud and accessible for the pilot site. Here, this image explaining, we saw also this morning, even with the further downscaling to the estuary area, so from the global to the very local downscaling. The hybrid downscaling, for instance, here is an example of the estuary box model where we use now also artificial intelligence to do climate projection of the water in the rivers, river mouth, and this important aspect related to technology transfer, but especially to the data management strategy from CMIPS to the local. Is a bit small. So from I mean from CMIP global and to the regional, and then make the data available and calculate the indicators to be suitable for adaptation planning. Now, going towards the service for society. So we call here decision support service prototypes. And we want to align with the new, I mean, quite recently concept of sustainable ocean planning. So we want to provide tools that help the stakeholders and the practitioner to access the solutions. So visualization is very important. Allow the user to set up their multi-hazard people-centered early warning system. We want to be interoperable so that the solution can be deployed in different areas and can become also what we call digital twin, so allow what-if scenario, also hopefully integrating both observation in situ and satellite and the model to be run, in fact, in what-if scenario. We want to make available solutions, or the objective is to make available solutions of hazard mapping from the physical to the biogeochemistry to the pollution, for instance, and then even more focused application on pollution, coastal erosion, and flooding, nature-based solution planning, fishery, mariculture, and then also, which is very relevant but very complex, make available the possibility of providing assessment. So as we were thinking about trends and assessment on extreme events, assessment on quality of the environment. Here are some examples. So of course not comprehensive, but good example that can be exported through the projects. Dashboard, which allow the access to information like marine heat wave, or dashboard that allow the marine spatial planning, where you integrate GIS, where you integrate different type of data. Some of them are done. The first one is SOCIB, the other one is within Edito. I remember now, maybe Planetech. This Deltares. This is our work on oil spill forecasting system with the with oil application, where you can simulate oil spill forecasting in real time. And on the right, you see the recent bulletin we produced for the authorities using Copernicus and the CNWF products in the Kerch Strait in the Black Sea, which was a very complex area. And the pollution, the coastal pollution toolbox will be presented, I think, in the next days. It's an Aerion product that can be expanded for the assessment of pollution in the different coastal section. And another example is the bulletin, the Meteocean bulletin, where you have the meteograms and you can read and display the coastal products. The digital twin, these are applications both from University of Bologna, CMCC, and Aerion, where we, let's say, the modeling tool are used in this case to plan restoration activity along the coast, and depending on the restoration design, this is a rain planting seagrass, then you can dump down the wave. So the red curve here is a lower wave because you have restored the ecosystem. Then we have other what-if scenario for water quality in the lagoon. So the last stakeholder engagement building block and knowledge exchange, it's quite important, it's very important. We have discussed yesterday, or this morning, sorry, with the example from the DCCCR. So the idea here is to prepare together and deliver courses and training also through the Ocean Teacher Global Academy of UNESCO IOC, and then it will be presented tomorrow in detail. I'm getting confused with the DCC meeting of yesterday. Sorry for that. And then the Compass workshop, and then course, and then we want to develop joint Meteocean training, and we want to develop courses that are capable of engaging the local community, and yeah. Then so our idea in this case is to really engage more and more the practitioner through this training activity, and the collaboration with the DCCCR. It's I think an asset that will allow us to expand our training capabilities and making the products available to the community, including postgraduate courses, and also engage with very young students, like the secondary school courses, as well as being able, we want to be able to specialize our courses either in thematic or because of regional characteristics, and again, engage as much as possible the local community. Last few slides from the as far as it concerns the institutional framework, as Willy also was starting to discuss before, we want to build the situation, the framework where we will ensure the long-term sustainability of all our solutions, and the observing and prediction system and the solution itself. And we want to leverage and use the GlobalCoast network that we are building together with you to really support this long-term capacity of multi-risk assessment, early warning system, and capacity building. The partnership, the DCCCR Partners Network Alliance, I think will enhance this coastal capacity, resilience capacity and initiatives, and will foster knowledge sharing, stakeholder engagement, and equitable education. And I think especially the GlobalCoast network itself, in collaboration with the DCC, will be able to, let's say, build within GOOS the IOC the capacity of a GOOS coastal community network, and hopefully this will be the results we leave for the next decade. I think it's no, I was forgetting last two slides. So we have tried in the menu of solution to define an initial approach. So we propose to you how to work with the meteorological community. And because we know, we are sure that it's very important to collaborate with them. There are areas where this is clearly the place where this part of the modeling and the sustainability of observation is done or is possible. So we want to collaborate with the Meteorological and Climate Institute. And we will ask, let's say, their support. So that's from our oceanographic community. We will ask the access to the WIS to real-time data so that we can make them available in our pilot sites. We will ask the access to the global and downscale atmospheric forcing, which are essential to run our model. And as well as the hydrological component, which is developed within WMO, or mostly developed in that framework. So we will ask this. We will co-design. We want to co-design the observing system, the coastal observing system with them, because our data, our observations are also very important for them. And co-design the numerical modeling system, especially for the early warning. And climate downscaling. So I think this can be done together. And on the other end, we can ensure, we can offer the access to our data and the access to our local forecasting model output, the downscale climate scenarios, and of course do together the training. So in conclusion, I think we will be able, through this menu of solution of GlobalCoast and CoastPredict, we will provide a unified framework for developing these solutions together. We think that we are able to innovate monitoring, forecasting, and the digital twin technologies and make them available in our cloud. And I'm sure we have the framework. I mean, you show yourself that we have the framework for collaboration. It's important, it's ready and essential. And I think we are showing or putting the basis for a future governance model is needed. We can develop together with the UNESCO, but I think we are the building block. Thank you. During the session, do you have any question?
So clearly these solutions need to be tailored and customized to the different pilots. Not all the pilots require the same amount of observations and or models and so. So this is very important also for the adaptation fund projects. They told us that to be very careful in the co-design and the tailoring of the solutions. But these are pretty much sort of it's really a menu that we think CoastPredict has put forward since its inception. And now it's clarified, and there are many organizations behind that do that. So we have seen Flame, we have seen CEOS, Coast, CMCC with modeling and others. So I think that this, it really, if we are able to criticize now, comment now, we have a guidance for applying these concepts in the different regions. So the different regions will be able to talk to each other because they will have a general framework. And that will be very useful. Just make a copy. Yes. Annabella, the Italian way, Annabella.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this great job. I think you tackled all of the major problems that we need to face in the different sites. I have a number of comments, not criticisms, please, that came into my mind. I was listening to Giovanni. First of all, maybe you can improve it a bit to make it in the form of recommendations. Okay, so different problems should have this specific approach, general approach, not specific tools, of course, to address that problem in a meaningful way. And with this, basically my suggestion is we go towards quality. Okay, so people that have work done in that system say, okay, I should improve what I've been doing because that is important and it's recognized internationally as important problems. This is the first thing. The second thing has to do with the stakeholders part. And there are two problems there in my view. First of all that training is very important. So we raise young people that have ocean literacy, that know how to use tools and know how to interpret them. But we have to think at our nowadays stakeholders. And maybe the type of training we need for them is probably a combination on the physics and the biogeochemistry, the processes in a light way, and then some training on the specific tools that will become available as the GlobalCoast evolves. Okay, I think that will be very, very important. Finally, and this is a Portuguese issue, we have to look at a language problem. Most of our stakeholders don't speak English as their working language. So how are we going to handle the translation of the tools that we develop jointly in the national language? We have right now a project for Nigeria, and we are going to translate OpenCoast in certain dialects. I won't be able to read anything on that dashboard, but that was necessary because the stakeholders were people from the villages, okay? And we want to reach them too, okay? They are the ones that will be in the field. Okay, then this is basically my suggestion. Thank you.
I mean, while you can give the mic to Nadi, but I agree, Annabella. I mean, this is a proposed framework of solutions. It's not, I mean, and as you will go through, it's a recommendation, so as you are saying. And the training, yes, the training should be really customized towards the stakeholders, which might be a researcher, but also a practitioner. So we need to be flexible and creative, or creativity, I don't know, creative, and engage them. Maybe we need also to add a co-design capacity, which is not training itself. I mean, it's really engaging them in developing and designing. So maybe we have to add this co-design, and the language, I guess, yes, is part of this customization of the products.
I just wanted to make a comment. We went with the Orca platform because it offers, I mean, this is tomorrow we will show you the first course that is actually running now at the same time. And Orca has several options, among others, the translation in a way that helps. Not only that, Orca is part of a network around the world where local sites are already connected with some standards to OTCA and to the IODE in general, capacity building activities. So we have a network of centers around the world. There is one in the Caribbean, there is one in Westpac, and so on, which are used for other topics and others, always connected to the ocean, but different. They are already used practice to have local language courses. So I think this is a great opportunity. They are willing to work with us. And in fact, the course that is going on now is this. And their platform is extremely flexible. It's a real teaching platform. that are teaching a course platform, which has many, many opportunities. It releases a certificate, which is ISO such and such also. And so it's well organized. So I hope tomorrow to show some. I think is a good starting point. We can add more. But language is a concern. Thank you very much.
Okay, then we move to Jay Perman presentation on ocean best practice. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. I'm Jay Perlman, and I'm with the IEEE. Giovanni gave a very, very good introduction. What I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about. He mentioned knowledge transfer, sharing, common approaches, and mentioned things like interoperability and best practices. And what I'd like to do now, just in the next few minutes, is give some substance or basis for what that means and how it works. To quote the document that we're working toward, co-design is an integrated coastal ocean observing and prediction system adhering to best practices and standards designed as a global framework. What do we mean by adhering to best practices and standards? In fact, what do we mean by best practices and standards? And so let's just take a couple of minutes and think this through. And if you're interested later, we can follow it up. So the first question is, what are best practices? There you go. And why do we want to use them? Now, this will be individually to each of you, how you engage, what you pick as a best practice to use for what you're doing. But on the whole, if you ask the community in general, why do I want it? It's an efficient use of time. You can take ideas that people spent years developing, they're well documented, and you can learn how to use them quickly. Collaborative opportunities. Here in the third one, we're focused on improved system interoperability. If we do things similar to other people, we know what each other are doing, and the thing will evolve to a very strong interoperability. You can compare data, but the next one, greater trust in data, means that people know how you did it, and they will trust your data. And if you're talking about working with administrations, you're talking about marine protected areas, I can go on and on. That trust in the data is really essential. And so as you adapt the practices, you adapt something that provides a foundation for your future work. And that's the regulatory approval and also higher success funding. So those are some of the benefits that you'll see in using practices that exist, but you may have to develop your own, and we can get those to be best practices for others to use. Okay, so let's talk about best practices and standards very briefly. A best practice is something which basically is driven from the bottom up. They're individually developed methods, and then a practice transitions to a best practice or an endorsed practice or perhaps a standard. The standards are generally top down with standards, international standards organizations, whether that's ISO, CEN in Europe or elsewhere. And those are done by expert committees and then produced for people to use. In fact, they're really two cats of the same breed. One's bottom up, the other's top down, but the goal is to ensure consistency and uniformity in how things get done. And they provide a common language, sometimes just copying things. If you don't know the language that a person is using, what the terms are, it presents challenges. So we're trying to develop a common language, and in answer to the comments, we're translating ours into languages through AI, so the best practice is for you. The next question is, where can I find them? And here I'd like to just point to the Ocean Best Practice System. This is an IOC project funded and co-sponsored by IODE and GOOS. So it's a sister organization to what we're talking about here. And our vision is to have agreed and broadly adopted methods across ocean research and operations. Let me emphasize it's the full value chain. We start out with the observations and the practices in observations, but we move to the data management, the modeling, and then ultimately to the applications and policy. The core capabilities within the Ocean Best Practice system are the repository, where there's more than 2,000 practices now, a journal to publish for the academics. This is important. Training and OTGA, as Nadia mentioned, is part of our organization also. And then finally, user support. And we have expanded capabilities I don't think I'll go into, but you're welcome to look at them. And what you have is a basic structure which shows user-centric approach, contributions of many practices from different international organizations, a repository, and training support. And so that's where you can find best practices and where you can share them and also gain colleagues. Now the question comes next. If I have 2,000 practices in the repository, that's pretty scary. How do I go through each of them and decide what I want to use or what I don't? And so we have two things. We have a good user interface, which allows you to select things according to your interests. And as important, we've developed a concept of maturity of practices. And they are, from starting at level 3, a defined and documented practice. Level 4 is a broadly adopted one by multiple organizations. And the last one is a sustained practice. That's a really mature practice. We call number 5 best practices. 3 and 4 become good, better, and then finally best. And you'll be able to go into the repository and look at those and see what they represent. I would like to just comment, and I've given the formalities here for the different levels. You can see this later if you look at the view graph. I want to emphasize level 5, a best practice. It's endorsed by an expert panel. It's used at least regionally. We really want to see it globally. There are protocols for improvements, which means there's versioning as things grow, the practice changes and evolves, and that involves users. And so it's a user feedback mechanism. And then we ask that there's quality assessment. Practices don't always do that. People don't think about it. We're trying to get the community to engage in what are the challenges, what are the issues, and what's the quality. And finally, a provision for training that I was mentioned earlier. So when you get to a best practice, it's really a full complement of capabilities that you can use. And then finally, let me look at the roadmap going forward. This is my last slide. The CoastPredict roadmap for OBPS, but also for best practices generally. Expand the work with developing nations, remote regions, and indigenous peoples. We are doing this already, and we welcome the opportunities to share. There's some good activities in Africa, primarily focusing right now on South Africa, in which we're taking low-cost sensors and asking how do you adapt practices to low-cost sensors. We also recognize that not every country has the same infrastructure, and practices that work in Europe may not work elsewhere, and we're adapting those practices. So motivate and focus a conversation at the global level around practices and to endorse what's best. Particularly regions can endorse what's best for them. What works in the Arctic doesn't work in the tropics, etc. We want to evolve the maturity model, which we're already doing, and ultimately create a federated network where all of the repositories globally join together into a single user access point. So you can go to that access point and you can gain practices around the world. That's in a pilot stage now. And then finally, synergize best practices and standards. We're working with the European SEN and with other organizations, IEEE, to move that forward. And so with that, that's the vision going forward. We're partway through that vision. And after the presentation, when we have a chance, be happy to answer individual questions. Thank you very much. There are references.
Thank you, Jay. Any question? So maybe it's important, Jay, that we introduce also this concept of a best practice a bit better in the menu of solution. It's a bit, because you contributed to the cloud component, but maybe we can add a paragraph on that. I think it's very important that progressively each of the solution comes to be an ocean best practice or something like that.
Yeah. And we can help the community mature practices that are good or better to become best. And that's one of the things that OBPS does, is working with the community in those definitions.
It works also vice versa. Maybe there are already ocean best practices that I don't know, they don't know. And maybe you can point out for each of the paragraph the reference to existing ocean best practice. Probably there was something on the regional ocean forecasting system.
Yes.
So if we put a reference, I think it could be helpful. Okay, so we can have questions. Yes.
This collection of best practices, which by the way is exciting, it's needed, are going to be including collection of practices regarding, for instance, how to overcome challenges for inclusion and connection to communities. Or I know in the US right now, you cannot talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion if you work for the federal government, but this is other space. But this is a challenge that, from my experience, is constantly there, like the enormous capacity of the scientific community to produce useful stuff and the difficulty in making it relevant to the everyday challenges for survival of communities who are actually facing the problems. So are you going to be collecting best practices for that too, of this inclusion, diversification, landing with the people?
Yeah, I think this is an important area. I would say that diversity, et cetera, is important, but there are cultural changes between nations that we also have to look at. And so, yes, we're actually trying to adapt some of the practices from the Northern Hemisphere for the Global South. And I think adding the cultural elements that you're mentioning would be very interesting. I'd love to talk to you about it afterwards. That's great.
Okay, thank you. So just the last comment, thank you, Jay. The menu of solution, if you can drop your comments and suggestions for a vision integration by the end of next week, Friday, working days. Next Friday, I don't remember, the 14th of February. It would be very helpful. Of course, if you can do it during the meeting and discuss during the meeting, do it. And then we will wait your comments till next Friday, 14th. Thank you. Then we move to the next session, chaired by Nadia.
So thank you. This is a very important session. I know we are all